Howdy, folks. I'm Jeff Gonzalez, former Navy SEAL, president of Trident Concepts, and host of the Bulletproof Workshop, powered by AR15.com, where we discuss knowledge, skills, and ability to help bulletproof your everyday performance in whatever your field. Welcome to Podcast 008. I've known my next guest for quite a long time. He's amassed a pretty impressive career in a wide field of activities, known for pushing boundaries on many fronts. He is constantly pushing himself and those around him. People will ask me, what's he like in real life? My answer is simple. What you see is what you get. If you see him doing a cannonball off a steep cliff into water, that's just him. It's not staged. That's just him. He's pretty much all out at everything he does. He's a father, a fighter, a soldier, entrepreneur, author, and humanitarian. Please welcome to the show, Tim Kennedy.
Greetings.
Tim,
Hello, my friend.
thank you for coming on the show, first of all. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. We get to talk all the time, but now now we talk with these huge black things in front of our
These
face.
phallic-like things. Well, let's take a quick moment to just thank our sponsors. Quick word from our sponsors at 1776 Insurance. So when we talk about comprehensive insurance plans as it relates to your firearms collection, what are we talking about? Well, first, it's not just including your firearms, but it extends to your accessories and your knives. And then when we talk about the individual items that are part of the coverage plan, we're talking about accidental breakage. We're talking about loss in the mail. So if you're going to ship your firearms to a training class or perhaps to get them worked on at a gunsmith, you're going to be covered. We're talking about events that happen both at home and away. So if you travel like I do, it's nice to know that I've got coverage no matter what I'm doing or where I'm going. We're talking about burglary, and that's both within your home and your vehicle. So if you leave the range, go have some breakfast tacos with friends after the range day, and your vehicle gets broken into, you're going to be covered. There's natural disasters and fire. There's also inflation coverage. I like the last one, which is loss from all other causes. And there are other parts to the insurance that are very valuable to me, which is there's no requirement for serialized numbers, itemized lists. There's not going to be any appraisals or schedules required. All you really have to do is have proof of ownership, and you're good to go. So if you want to learn more about 1776, visit 1776insurance.com. So what I want to do is, for those that don't know who you are, if they've lived under a rock for the last 20 years, let's start from the beginning.
Cool, man.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up.
What's your childhood like?
Yeah, I'm a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
As are you.
I know,
and
right?
It's hard to explain to this generation what that was like. No helmets. Your parents would kick you out, and you'd come back.
Lock the doors.
Yeah.
Until nighttime.
Maybe there'd be like you'd find some form of substance left out on a step.
Yeah.
That went
watermelon. It was watermelon on us.
Maybe.
Yep.
Rotten cantaloupe. And you would have like 10 hours of debauchery. Like whatever. So like that, I was the next stoplight. I lived in a small town in Central California. And, we had the creek gang. So like me and like 5-6 friends.
Love hearing that.
Up and down the creek, swimming, like
catching
figuring out
crawfish,
how to,
all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
I know. I feel bad in some cases. Every generation is going to be different. You look at your generation as like the best.
Yeah.
But I really feel like what we did was like pushing the limits and everything. Like there was no, I guess there were boundaries, but we were free.
Yeah.
Free to kind of get into mischief and get into trouble and learn through our mistakes.
It's a different world now too, though.
That's so true.
And,
so true.
As a father, I there's no way that I could do anything with my kids what my parents did. Like it just was impossible. But I also have friends that like are dead.
Yeah.
Because of the freedoms that we had. Like there's
a give and take there. Yeah, I can appreciate that too. Like we did get like so many broken bones, so many trips to the ER, so many of those things. And I guess as a father now too, like, the first time I think I saw my kid who had a broken bone, I was like, oh, he's never doing anything. He's living in a bubble from here on out, no more. And, you're like, oh, okay, hold up, hold back on those reins. Just let him, it'll be okay. So you grew up in Central California and you had an 80s style childhood, and kind of like, what was a defining moment in your childhood that kind of put you on this path that you're at now?
Man, so a rad dad and a rad mom. My dad was Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just amazing. They just had their 50th wedding anniversary. So like still, breaking the mold. Only less than 5% of marriages make it to 50 years. 5%.
That's crazy to think about it.
Yeah. And, they are setting the standard in every way. So my dad was a police officer. He was a narcotics officer. The whole time growing up, he was undercover. Wow. He was on a lot of different task force units that were counter drug. And, this was early counter drug.
Oh yeah. Back in the 80s when it was like, you're cutting trail, you're breaking trail in that time period.
Yeah. Meth is first really on the scene. Wow. And coke is peaking. The cartels are really hammering the southern border, coming in through the Caribbean. So one of the many stories I brag about in San Luis Obispo, there's a famous hotel called Madonna Inn, and Mr. Madonna has an amazing bakery, and he had a really scary kidnapping situation where one of his family members were kidnapped, and the police did like just great police work, like gumshoe type police work, and rescued his daughter.
Wow.
So he has been so generous to first responders and law enforcement because of that. And like if you come in uniform, if somebody even hears or like you have a good military haircut, you're never paying for your food. That's just how he rolled. So you would actually have to be clever to figure out how to pay for food, being a son of a police officer. Well, my dad had stolen a plane full of cocaine from Pablo Escobar in the Caribbean and flew that plane back to the United States. And what is now like a Fast and Furious style operation, where then they took all of this cocaine and distributed it to all of the local drug dealers and then arrested everybody, and they didn't lose a single gram of coke. It was pretty wild. But on this night, I go to Madonna Inn and I order a bunch of pies, their famous pies, and I walk into a warehouse. There's a Lamborghini, there's a Porsche, and there's a pallet of cocaine. A pallet of cocaine. And there's my dad. He looks like a meth head. He's wearing, he's 6'3", 280 pounds, and all of his other giant narc friends, and they all look like just total dirtbags. Like the stained wife beaters, the Hawaiian shirts over those that are also torn and tattered. And like that's one of my first memories of my dad working. He's sitting there with a suppressed MP5, and he brought that Porsche home, and then anyways, I grew up in this world.
Yeah.
And we had a red phone in the closet that like answer, and this dude with a weird Colombian accent would be like, "Buenos tardes." I was like, "Hola, ¿qué pasó, amigo?" And he's like, "¿Dónde está tu padre?" I was like, "Trabajando?" Like just totally white kid Californian Spanish. God. And we had like scripts to support my dad's cover story. So they would be calling, and unbeknownst to this 9-year-old with crappy Spanish, if I stepped out of the lane, I could get my dad killed.
Oh, jeez, that's a lot of burden there.
Even more beautiful is we just stayed in what we now know as our circle in like SEER training. And,
yeah.
But back then, I was like, I just say, okay, it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
he's at work. Just supporting that pattern of life
for a 9-year-old.
I didn't know.
Well, true. That's just life. You don't know any different now. But God Almighty. That was, and I love how you just kind of threw in, my dad stole a plane full of cocaine as kind of like just a just like part of the story, not the part of the story, but just a little part of the story. Oh man, again, so that makes sense. That makes total sense. A great role model, and following in your father's footsteps. So, all right, let's fast forward maybe to your teen years, because that's always kind of like a troubling time period for most young men. How was teen years for you?
Yeah, so still breaking boundaries. Some friends it was weird when I wrote this book. We went back through the legal review, and the lawyers go through every single name that's listed in a book, and they look for defamation, and like it's pretty straightforward. Almost every single one of the names from my youth is dead, and nearly every single one of the men that I was deployed with are dead. Wow. So like about 30 minutes into this what was supposed to be like a 2-hour long legal review for the book, the lawyers are crying on the phone.
No way.
Yeah. So my teen years are crazy. Yeah. When I say I push limits, like taking skill saws and thinking I'm James Bond, cutting through skylights to rappel into buildings to try and take other tools like torches, so then I could go to gun stores and try to cut my way into a gun store to steal some guns. This is me as a teenager. This is us racing cars in the back roads.
It makes so much sense now to see where you ended up.
Yeah. It's hilarious when we look at some kids in Alaska. They're 13, stole a plane. Two kids stole a plane, took off. They flew around for like 30 minutes on a stolen plane and then landed it. And the first thing that goes through my head is, somebody send those kids to selection.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? Like that kid needs to go to Buds or that kid needs to go to selection. There's something about this fine line about how these people's brains work, and it's not the right way.
It is the right way in a certain circumstances, like in that special operations community. That is a very common thing, I think, like the boundary pushers, the rebels, the ones that kind of like they know how to push the limits and get away with it.
Yeah. We want a clearly defined line.
Yeah.
We want to understand the nuance and subtleties of everything about why this rule exists, whether it's a cultural rule, it's a social rule, or a legal law rule, so that we know how to break it and not get caught. That's the only reason I want to know all these rules.
It's so funny. It's so funny. I can remember, like I remember this one. We were doing a combat swimmer training, and there was this one long ass dive, and you've been diving all week long, and they're just constantly I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. After a while, it's just kind of boring.
Yeah.
So we were like, we got to figure out something to do to spice this up, and so we created 2 dive plans. One dive plan that we briefed, the other dive plan that we executed, which was not the one that we briefed. And I'll tell you what, I remember, like, we had to play that so close to the line, like everything, like the checkpoints that we had to do, like all the follow-ups, and once we got off, everything was like perfectly timed, and it was probably the best dive I ever did, even though it was completely illegal. But because we had to know those fine limits, we had to work right at that threshold, razor's edge, to avoid getting caught. Because of course, if we had gotten caught, that would have been serious. And I'll never forget, like, at first I'm like, man, dude, this is risky. But let's do it, because I was just like going crazy. Oh my God, I'm going to be on bag for like another hour and a half underwater. That I can't do that. That's just like, and especially back in the day, we'd be sitting there prepping our rigs, and I'd start going, and then all of a sudden under your dive, that's all you hear. You just keep repeating that. So everybody would subliminally plant those little tunes in your head, and you'd be sitting there, you motherfucker, I can't believe I get these.
Just you and your brain in the bubbles.
That's it, man. That's all it was. All right, so teen years, definitely rebellious.
Yeah, 15, my best friend dies.
Ooh.
And we were at one party going to another place, and Jared Cunningham with his brother Jordan. When I say a party, these are great. As I am practicing debauchery in every imaginable form as a teenager, Jordan and Jared are just like amazing dudes. Like they were the ones that didn't. They were going from like slumber party, hanging out, pizza party, church group to another group that were going to be playing video games and like playing soccer in the backyard with glow sticks.
Oh,
like so good kids.
Yeah.
Not good kid. Very clearly defined group here, and good kids with not developed frontal lobes, making bad decisions, and trying to pass a friend. So 2 cars, he goes to pass. They're looking over, and I can see it. They're talking to each other as another car comes around the corner, and they head on collision, at 70 miles an hour.
Damn.
Jared dies. His brother is sitting there doing CPR on him, and this is I go like full idiot for a couple of years as I have just a really difficult time processing what this means. But the end result after a really sketch 3 years, I'm now 18, is I never want to be in a position of not knowing what to do and not knowing how to protect or save somebody. So 18, go to EMT, fire academy. I start working at the fire department, and that is the beginning of this long journey into being a first responder, a protector, a defender, whatever name you attach to whatever the things that we do now.
Yeah.
That was the start of it.
That's a pretty serious catalyst to get that going. It's like the death of a close friend. That's harsh. Man, that's a tough one. But it seems like that kind of turned that into a positive in a sense in the long run.
A long ways down there. My mom's best friend, she died in a diving accident in Morro Bay, California. We don't know how she got spooked. She panicked. Flash surfaced. in the middle of Morro Bay, and she got hit by a boat. It's like this was my mom's best friend. So I had all of these things around me. Very quickly, I become a diver after she dies.
No kidding.
Yeah. Go, and I want to be a professional diver. So like underwater welder, rescue diver.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like I just start knocking. And so each of these catalysts are really launching me into this idea. It's
form.
Really, this nebulous thing of being this protector, the defender.
And it makes sense too. I mean, childhood has the way. That's why I like to start off in the childhood, because it has a great way of forming us without us really knowing exactly what it's going to lead. We just kind of like, there's something there that we kind of like latch onto, and with time it starts to manifest itself, and we start to become more aware of it, and we start making life choices that push us further in that direction, which is exactly what it sounds like you did. So like I was going to ask you, what was a major thing from your childhood that impacted you, and it sounds like that was probably it.
Yeah, I fought a lot. My dad very wisely was throwing me into a lot of martial arts to try and bumper me back away from hilariously, I was in my hometown this last weekend. I ran into a dude, and he's like, man, the last time I saw you, you're beating the living bejesus out of me and my friends in the In-N-Out parking lot. And I was like, you gotta be way more specific, man.
It's happened maybe once or twice.
Yeah, like 10, 15, 20 times. In-N-Out was one of my favorite places to fight. And
oh God.
So we literally had narrow down the year and the time of year of that year for me to figure out that's how many times I was fighting. Oh. So yeah. So then martial arts comes into my life.
Yeah.
Doing Japanese jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, takariya jiu-jitsu, and ultimately ended up the pit and doing Hawaiian Kempo and kickboxing.
Yeah.
With
How was that?
Humiliating.
Oh man!
This is no different than now. Yeah. Like when I walk into these rooms with the Gordon Ryans and the Sean J. Ribeiros and the Steve Haggerts, and you're like, yeah, I thought I was good, and then I just get dunked on by these brilliant, talented martial artists.
Well, I mean, it's like I feel like too, like there's a trend, like martial arts provides you with like a path to follow, as well as a path to explore. Like you learn a lot about yourself. Like you really can. You can obviously take it the wrong way, but I think a lot of people really find it rewarding in a sense, because there's structure, there's achievements, there's recognition of achievements, there's all these things that just kind of cater to guys like you and I. That what's the next thing? Where's the next step? Where's the next level? What's the next thing for me? Like what do I keep doing? How do I keep going here?
There's nobody to blame besides you.
Exactly.
And one of my favorite things about all grappling sports, all pugilistic sports, ultimately you end up out there by yourself, you and your opponent, and somebody gets their hands raised, and the other person that didn't get their hand raised is standing there with all failure resting exclusively and solely on their shoulders. Man. And I love that.
Well, let's talk about your UFC career. I mean, was that in, like, when you went to the pit, did you foresee yourself making it into the UFC?
So fighting was never a career for me. I just like to fight.
I love that. Well, it's good on you for finding a constructive outlet.
Yeah. The first time that, I was at an Indian reservation, bare knuckles, and somebody handed me cash after I smashed some dude in a roped ring with a cardboard floor, and I was like, they're paying me to do this.
The plot thickens.
This is amazing.
Wait a minute.
This is amazing.
You mean I can actually make money doing this?
I was doing this for free for the past 6 years.
Now I'm going to get money for this.
Yeah. I literally paid through college. I mean, it's fine that, people are getting their loan repayment stuff from the government. I fought bare knuckled in Indian reservations and in Tijuana, California
to pay
my way through college.
Man, dude.
Feel scar tissue.
Yes.
Well, and look at scar tissue.
Yeah.
I paid for college by doing this on
That's
Indian,
actually pretty cool, though.
when it was still illegal.
I know, but still, that's wickedly cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. All right, quick word from our sponsor. We've been working with the folks at 1776 for comprehensive insurance of our firearms collections, and I'm really happy with how things are going so far. And one of my concerns is with the amount of commuting that I do with my firearms collection. What happens should my vehicle be broken into or stolen with my firearms? And there's reason to have this concern because there's 800,000 vehicles stolen per year in America. So it's not, it's a little bit more common than we might think. What I mentioned earlier is that they have a comprehensive insurance plan, which is that they will cover your firearms stolen out of your vehicle, or should your vehicle be stolen, cover the firearms that were in the vehicle. So that's pretty reassuring in a sense. So I've mentioned this before, but the process to apply is pretty easy. Approval is pretty quick. They do not require you provide a itemization or serialized numbers. There's no appraisal or schedules that you have to provide. So really all you want to do is just make sure you have proof of ownership, and that's it. So if you want to learn more about the folks from 1776 and insuring your firearms collection, visit 1776insurance.com. All right, so you're training at the pit with some heavy hitters, literally.
Yeah, literally, figuratively, metaphorically, the heaviest hitters on the planet.
Yeah. How was that? Like I met Chuck Liddell once in Hawaii at the beach, and it was such a different kind of like experience for me.
He's a man. He's a mountain of a man. There's nothing right about him proportionately, And it's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And you realize that he has his whole entire life trained for one thing, which is to hit something hard with either of his hands.
So I loved watching him. He was one of my favorites during that time period. I was really enjoying UFC pay-per-view, fight parties, going and watching all of that stuff. And he was definitely one of my top fans. I was a big
you're just like
I loved watching him. That was awesome.
But that room, you had Eric Childers, you had Scott Smith, you had Scott Adams, you had Glover Teixeira, who was just recently champion. Like, that's who's in the room. Everywhere that you look, you're just like, oh, Scott Lights Out Lighty, Jason Von Flew. The Von Flew choke is named after Jason Von Flew. You have Cruz Gomez. You're just like, what this? And then you have like this dumb, hairy-handed little troll that's not good at anything, Tim, who's usually hanging out in the corner because nobody wants to touch him.
Oh, my God. Yeah, but, I mean, just the amount of knowledge that was dispensed, even from a back wall point of view, just sitting back there and watching that. It just, like today this morning, I was sitting against the wall watching you and Jean-G just kind of taking in all that information. So even then, there's so much value, but what was the big takeaway from that experience?
I got to see what discipline applied to like the human form looked like.
Interesting.
So this was pre-fight camps, right? This was before there was, the big Florida fight teams. Before there was Greg Jackson and Winklejohn. Before there was AKA. This there were little groups. There were little pockets of guys that would train together.
Right.
Like Randy Couture and Matt Lindland, they would come down, and Tito Ortiz, he would come up. So people were like cross-pollinating, but there was no fight team.
Right.
So it wasn't this developed proper sport yet. So you saw martial artists that then mixed with collegiate athletes who brought the discipline of being, a high-level collegiate athlete into the martial art room. And when those two things started meeting, that's what was happening at the pit.
Yeah.
You had really high-level wrestlers, coming from Cal Poly and, the Randy Coutures, the Matt Lindlands, Olympians that were showing up. And then you had martial artists, and things were starting to be developed about what does it look like to prepare for a fight.
Interesting.
And that was happening. That was like generation one. That was happening in front of me.
So so that's basically kind of like the, I guess the beginning of the frame of mind that you currently have as far as how you train,
that's
like
right.
the mindset in a sense.
Yeah. John Hackelman, like if I was deployed in Iraq or Afghanistan, Africa, like that didn't stop me. A lot of my even my world title fights, I was in a foreign country in a combat zone weeks or months before that. And then I'm fighting at the highest level. And like, how is that possible? Well, it was possible because of Chuck Liddell. It was possible because of John Hackelman. It was possible because of Randy Couture and Matt Lindland. And it was possible because like I got to see how it was created.
Yes.
How the fight preparation looked.
Yeah.
So like if you give me a transmission and a 50 cal, I'll have the best workout in the world. You give me 2 jerry cans, or 2 sandbags.
Yeah.
It's going to be a rough night.
Well, that just goes to prove that it's not about the tools per se. I mean, obviously the tools matter. Like if you had a nice gym that you can actually train in, that's awesome. But
look at Edwards.
Yeah.
Like he just beat Usman, and he trains at the tiniest little gym in the UK. He has no superstar training partners. He has no fancy stuff. And he said it in his post-fight speech. He was like, I wanted to prove to the world that like one person with will can still become the world champion.
Yeah.
I proved to the world that multiple times you can almost become the world champion because like I lost both my title fights. Humiliating.
So let's talk about that.
Losing?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
Well, I think it's valuable because that's losing at the highest level. Not to rub it in, but I'm just saying, what was the takeaway from that? What changed for you with those losses?
Millions of people watching you lose.
I know.
Pretty good motivator to there's all these really irritating like monikers and clever little sayings, like fail forward, and like rush to failure, and like failure isn't final. Like I freaking have in the end of my book, and they're all true, and they're so irritating.
But they still suck.
Yeah, they still suck. That doesn't soften the feeling of humiliation.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't soften the blow to your ego. Like that doesn't soften any of it. I still have to sit like. Jocko said it the other day. He's like, man, I remember watching you fight for those world titles, and then you lost. I was cheering for you. I was so pumped for you.
Yeah.
And then I went and had chicken. But I'll tell you what it felt on my end. Like I didn't get to go have chicken. I have to sit there with swollen hands, my eyes swollen closed. Like going 25 minutes with Luke or Jacare, for these titles, and that the sting of that loss.
Yeah.
My least favorite moment is when you're healthy enough to walk back into the gym and walking back into your training partners, to your peers. Nothing hurts worse than going back to your peers, right? Like people can talk smack about me all the time, but nothing hurts more than when I go back to one of my colleagues and they're like, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, I need a moment.
It's onions.
And it's true. There's plenty of cool catchphrases to try to help us paint a brighter picture of failure. But I know you well enough to know that failure also was jet fuel.
Oh yeah, jet
fuel to ignite a new phase in your training, a new phase in your mission, a new phase in your goals. Like, okay, now I'm changing lanes in a sense, and that's the thing that Granted, those suck and they sting, and I appreciate that. I can never understand that because I've never felt that, but I know what it leads to, and it leads to something positive. It leads to something like you're either going to learn from it, or you're going to make the same mistakes again.
Yeah.
So,
man, I can brag. Not a lot of things do I get to brag about. I brag that I have probably failed than everyone else on the planet, but I've very rarely failed at the same thing twice.
Yes.
Like very rarely.
But all kidding aside, I feel like it is important, and maybe it's a generational thing, but we, again, grew up making mistakes. We grew up getting hurt. We grew up doing things that cost us in some cases. And so that kind of that prepared me a little bit for some of the failures that I was going to hit in my life, the big failures, the ones that really leave a mark. And, I look back and I was like, oh, okay, this is like a little pre-training to the actual event, and I try to take the lessons learned from them, and like you, not make the same. And I feel like if that occurs, then it was a success.
Yeah,
and that's a win for me. Like if I don't because I don't know everything. I know such a smidgen. I'm an idiot. Basically, I'm a colorful idiot. So when I can learn from something and not make that same mistake, I'm like, yes. Yes, of course, it might take several more mistakes before that finally happens, but that's my goal. My goal is to make fewer mistakes of the same thing over and over. So I remember when you retired. I remember that, and how was retiring from something like that? I mean, that is...
It was jet fuel.
Yeah.
It was so great. It was so wonderful. And like every phase of my life, there has been this propulsion, this accelerant that has thrust me into this next thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's being an entrepreneur, like working as a humanitarian, like every single one of those, there had to be a necessary transition phase from the prior thing to the new thing.
Yes.
And in that transition, I think there's a lot of people that struggle to find their way.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. That's all fine. It's figuring it out. I get it.
Yeah.
But I went at those in that moment of transition. I went at it with full commitment. I went at it with a strategic plan, with discipline.
Yeah.
And I freaking hammered it.
Yeah.
Like whatever the next thing was,
Yeah.
it was completely in.
Yeah. So, and that leads us up to kind of like a little bit more modern time with sheepdog response and that, burst onto the scene. And you guys are killing it now. I mean, like the staff is growing, the classes, more classes are added to the calendar. How has that been? I know that wasn't your first business foray, and then you have so many other business, irons in the fire of sorts. But I pay attention to sheepdog because it's kind of in my lane, and I watch you guys what you're doing, and I've been out to some of the classes to watch you actually teach these classes. So how has that transition been for you, and has it still kind of like continued to provide you with that inner fuel of sorts?
Yeah, for sure. But the fuel that drives me now is the byproduct of the success of it, right? So we have a screen capture I just sent to Matt Smith, our director of Sheepdog, and it was one of our students that went to our TTRC class, was driving home, saw a car wreck, has his medic bag. This guy has this compound fracture, bone sticking out of his leg, blood's going everywhere. He throws on a tourniquet, saves this dude's life, right? We have this like the list of these people, the soft model, right? In force multiplication. The soft model is you take one person, you go and I train a whole bunch of these people, a whole bunch of these people go and train more people, and we just keep on empowering.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing on with Sheepdog Response is we are trying to be a force multiplier.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a Yako in a theater in Colorado. Maybe he is.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Watching a Batman movie when a dude walks in with a gas mask, throws a canister, and thinks he's going to get success.
Yeah.
And Yako's just sitting there trying to hide his erection as he slowly draws his weapon. He's like, "This is going to be awesome."
Oh God.
No story, no headline. Bad dude walks in. Bad dude dies.
Yeah.
That's the end.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to read about it.
No.
Well, what we're doing is, we have 200 classes scheduled right now.
That's crazy.
200 classes of 40 people all over the country, all over the world. And in true force multiplying, there is, now we know statistically, there is going to be somebody at the next school, at the next Uvalde. There is going to be somebody at the next supermarket, the next racist prick that walks into a church, any place of worship that thinks he's going to have an easy day.
Yeah.
There's going to be a Jeff Gonzalez or somebody that you've trained.
Yeah.
And that's the end.
It's so true. Like, being in the training business as long as I've been in, like my interest is in helping people and getting people to be self-sufficient and competent and comfortable, and hearing kind of stories coming back at me. Like the first time and I'm sure you've had this too, but the first time a student calls you up and says, "Hey, I just had to use my firearm in self-defense, and I'm calling to thank you for what I learned in the class because I believe that's what
jet fuel.
Yeah,
it's freaking jet fuel.
It's like it's humbling.
Yep.
Like I'm trying. Like inside, I'm excited, but outside, I'm trying to be cool because I know that was a really tense moment and a very emotional moment. But at the same time, I'm like, yes, that worked, that helped. That guy's alive. That girl's alive. They're gonna go on. They're gonna continue to promote it in their own circles, and it's gonna keep going, like you're saying. So it's like funny to see that. And I've had several students that have been involved in deadly force encounters. And each one of them is a unique story, and each one of them is anytime I think, oh, you know what, maybe I'll find something new in my life to do, I get a student who emails, phones me, whatever, and I'm like, nope, I'm in it for.
I'm doing the right thing.
I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to
You're
stay
exactly where you're meant to be.
Absolutely.
You're put on this planet for this reason.
It's so funny. I got to tell you this real quick story. The movie theater scene, that movie theater in Denver, Colorado, my son and I were in that movie theater 3 days before that event.
Oh my gosh.
We were at a lacrosse tournament. And we got eliminated in the final brackets. So we had we set our flights for the end of the day. So we had all day. And we went to that movie theater with another father and son. And we watched the movie there 3 days before that happened.
Dang it.
I know.
You're carrying?
Yeah. Well, Colorado, that was nice. So, but I mean, when that incident burst out, and I was like, Colorado, well, we were just in Colorado. We were just in, and then I start kind of like narrowing it in. I'm like, holy shit, we were just 3 days away from that happening. Yeah, exactly. Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. All right, so Sheepdog is killing it, and the next phase of your life is kind of like opening up and basically becoming like this transparent, like giving everybody the information with this book, and you and Nick getting together and writing this book. How was that? Because there's some pretty personal stuff in that book. Yeah. I mean, people that haven't read the book yet have no idea that you really kind of lay a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think our failures are the keys to the castle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And why would I hold on to those keys?
Yeah.
I think it's so selfish, and I think it's so dangerous, this world that we're living in now, where this fake, curated, editorialized existence, where it's like TikTok filters and Instagram. I'm only going to post the best picture of me at the end of the workout when I'm all vascular. Like let me see what you had for breakfast there, bro.
Yeah.
Like let me see your workout and see. Was that really a green heart rate during your dog run? Like the difference between the transparency and truthfulness of a true expert to the fake, curated 2022 version of what the humans think that we want to project is a dangerous thing. And the delta between these two is where success and failure lies. Failure's over here, where you make everybody think that you're doing great. Like, I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I had a great workout.
Just lying to yourself.
So you're lying to yourself and to everyone else. Like this was a different thing where I was like, no, I have to be as vulnerable as possible to let, otherwise everything that we do here is fake.
Yeah.
Everything that I've ever said that I am is fake.
Yeah.
Everything that I've ever aspired to be is fake. So I'm either going to do it right or I'm not going to do it.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to give away a lot of the points in the book that were important, but one of the things too that I took away was sharing some of these stories is in some ways a little cathartic as well. Maybe.
It's hard.
Yet to be determined.
Yeah.
Yet to be determined. But, and I like the idea about the vulnerability thing. That to me helps people to see that, you don't have to be a Tim Kennedy to be successful. You are, but you can still learn from Tim's mistakes and become successful. You can.
Now, where was this book for us? 20 years ago. Right. Dude, I would
I know. It's funny. I like so much. So in today's world, I would that would have been helpful. Yeah. That would have been helpful. Jeez. Yeah. But instead, nope, just bang my head against the wall until I figure something else out.
Could I just pulled out, I journaled every single one of the missions I ever went on. I have my GRGs from the Target. Nice. I have the Target package created from the people that create Target packages first off. I have I know it's super not legal. But I kept
not appropriate.
But I kept every single one of them. And afterwards, my boss, John McPhee, the sheriff of Baghdad, who runs a great training company. If you ever get a chance to train with him, do so. The dude is brilliant. He's a great shooter. And he would do these AARs, and he would break it down, from the pre-mission planning phase to the post-planning into preparation before launch, infill, actions on, exfil, and then refit. He'd do it by phase of operations.
Love that.
And a full AAR break, he'd have the 18 Foxes, the intel guys talk about the pre-mission planning process. Yeah. They'd have the team leaders drop in there, through the whole entire thing. What I would have done to had that process as a E5, man, or as an athlete, I just needed this.
I mean, I'll tell you, one of the there's several valuable lessons that I've taken away from my military career, but the debrief, the honest, straight up,
honest
you
debrief.
Walk into a room, there's no rank, there's no privilege. It's just, we need to be constantly evolving because our enemy's evolving. And that means that we need to be taking a hard look at how we performed and being critical of that in a way. So in an effort to not make those same mistakes again. Yeah. And at first, the first couple of debriefs that I took part in, it's hard because I screwed that up. That was on me. Yep. I screwed that up. And, it's the first couple times
it
you're
hurts.
just it does. It could, because guys may not appreciate this, but what that really equates to is that I let my team down.
Yeah.
Not I didn't fail. I let my team down. And yes, that's failure, but nobody ever wants to be saddled with that. You don't want to be the reason why the mission didn't succeed.
Yeah.
So eventually through that process, I became like addicted to it. Like, no, we need to sit down. We need to talk. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What did we learn? And then make that a staple in everything that we did. And, and I think people can, like in our classes, we try to do that. We try to help our students to appreciate the importance behind that debrief, the honest debrief. Like, don't sugarcoat it.
Have you ever seen Matt Smith do a debrief?
No.
Bro.
Okay.
Dude, first of all, have some thick skin.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I walk in there as like CEO and president of all these things, bro. He just, pow! And I sit there, I was like, you're right. I'll fix that.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing that guys like you and I can appreciate, because I don't want to like keep making that same mistake and then ultimately like maybe 3 mistakes and down the road learn it.
Yeah.
I would rather learn it right now. And if that takes kind of like swallowing your pride and taking the beatings and hey, you screwed up in the first place. So you got to own up to that. That was the biggest thing that I learned was you made a mistake, you have to own up to it, because if you're not going to bullshit anybody in that room.
Yeah.
Everybody in that room knows exactly what happened. They were there. They saw it. They know. You can't bullshit. So the first thing you have to do is own up to that mistake, and the second thing you have to do is figure out how not to make that mistake again. And that's where the experience of the team came in. Like I had a great experience with all my platoons. These guys were dialed in and solid, and I made plenty of mistakes, but I learned from these guys, and that's why I feel like the debrief is a lost art. I feel like more people could benefit from that type of sincere, honest criticism that is not designed to put you down.
Yeah.
It's designed to bring you up.
Where's like the debrief from end of Vietnam in Saigon, as we just, yesterday we're evacuating people out of the green zone, the international zone of Baghdad. 1 year ago to the day, we're like taking C-17s, C-130s, 737s from civilian organizations, repeating the exact same thing that we have failed. Like, when you say it's not just broken, it's lost. Like I think there are some people that are strategically not doing it. Like
I would agree with you. I would agree.
We just let these people die.
Yeah.
Do they really are they really of any value to us?
I like people will say this, and not to get too much into politics, that they'll make up all sorts of excuses, and I'm like, no, they're doing exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
This is not that they're stupid. This is not that they're idiots. This is them doing exactly what they want.
You've got a staff of 12 people in there doing a better AAR than the entire American government after one of the worst evacuations in human history.
I mean, it's sad, and I'm so glad that you're bringing that up, because I want to shift into Save Our Allies. And we are 1 year to the day.
Yeah.
This is 1 year for you. So let's first take a step back and
say the 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. August 30th. It was the last day that an American government plane left with any evacuees.
Yes.
Today.
And that's like
4 days after the bombing.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about Save Our Allies and how that came to be. Because that's huge. I think that's
it's a lot of my time now.
I know it is. Yeah. I see it. It's so
wild. Of all of my, I have all these businesses. Save Our Allies and my school, Apogee,
that's right,
take 90% of my time, and I make no money from them. Like, not a cent.
Yeah.
Not a single cent do I make from the school. Every cent goes back into the school. And Save Our Allies, I've never taken a penny. Actually, that's not true. I have taken $1 so I could be on our insurance.
Smart.
So
that's technically paid employment.
Yep.
$1.
Yeah, I have. So to be totally transparent, I have taken $1 from Save Our Allies as a paid employee. So Save Our Allies, in early August, Nick and I are writing this book. My buddy Nick Palmisciano has been my friend for nearly 20 years.
Nick.
He's an amazing human. Yeah. He's an amazing man. Also one of the most truthful men I've ever met.
Interesting.
You cannot, it is wild how Boy Scout and irritatingly honest he is about all things. And we actually had a conflict with one of our colleagues, and this colleague was like, Nick lied to me about this. I was like, he did not. He's like, yes, he did. I'll show you messages. I was like, well, like they're out of context. I'll tell you, he did not lie. Like he didn't. Yeah. There's no way. He's no like zero chance of it. Yeah. And I could be there with absolute certainty that Nick told him the truth with the information that he had.
Yeah.
And I could just so like that's who my friend Nick is.
I love him.
Every single one of my fights, he cornered me. He was at my fight camps. I broke his ribs before a fight. He's peeing blood, and he's because like I had hurt all my other training partners. That's Nick. So Nick and I are sitting on the couch here in Austin, Texas, writing that book when my phone rings and Chad Robichaux is calling me saying, my translator Aziz, Chad was a Marine recon, early recon guy who then went over to work for a special missions unit as an AFO, an advanced force operator. Like you kind of go, what was that movie 12 Strong?
Yeah.
Do you remember when the SF ODA lands out of the back of that 47?
Yeah.
And that dude like walks up off horseback. He's like, "Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Afghanistan."
Yeah.
That's an AFO.
Yeah.
That's what Chad was doing. And so there were many times that he was very much by himself, him and Aziz, his translator.
Yeah.
Aziz did, I don't know, a half a dozen deployments with him. Oh, wow. And they were so close that Chad knows Aziz's wife, like had dinner with her. And if you understand the culture. Like how significant that is, like that's how close they were. He was family to Aziz. And Chad calls me and he's like, "Hey man, the Taliban currently is hunting Aziz. They know where he's at. They've already killed his friends. They're going to rape and murder his whole entire family in front of him, and then they're going to kill him. Can you come and help me?" And my phone had just been blowing up since I think this is like right around when we had given up Bagram. And I'm getting contracts, $10,000 a day to go grab somebody. Yeah. A $1 million contract to go find this dude and get him out. And all the times I'm just like, no. I did not want to go there for any other reason besides an altruistic reason. Yeah. Like not because I wanted to be this philanthropic person. I wanted, if I'm going back to Afghanistan, it has to be like the origin, the genesis, like the center of gravity for the purpose was so important to me. And when Chad calls me and he's like, "I need help." Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm on. Yeah. And the same moment I'm talking to Chad, Nick is on the phone with Sarah Verardo. Yeah. And Sarah Verardo is this powerful force for good. Her husband was one of the most like horrifically wounded veterans of the Afghan war. Oh. And she has been, the president and one of the founders of the Independence Fund, getting wheelchairs and motorized wheelchairs for veterans that had been catastrophically wounded. Yeah. She is the sole care provider for her husband. And so she cares a lot about Afghanistan. She's trying to find her husband's translators to get them out. So like I'm on the phone with Chad, Nick's on the phone with Sarah, and I look over at Nick, and Nick's like, and I'm like, "All right, how are we getting in there?" And Chad's like, "We set up the Shell Corporation. I think we have a way in through this lily pad country. We know this prince over here. We know the sheik over here." And I look over at Nick, and Nick's like, "Dude, I think we have government clearance. Sarah's already working all these angles with DOD and DOS." So like time now, like whether that's God, divine intervention, the stars aligning, with both. So those are the 4 founding members of Save Our Allies. Yeah. Chad, myself, Nick, and Sarah. And that phone call is what initiates things. So Chad already has some people on the ground that are moving into Afghanistan. Sarah is already pulling strings on leveraging military and government connections. Nick and I start, Nick as a marketer, Nick is owning a production company. Nick starts using all of his resources, build the website, fundraise, start connecting. Yeah. I start calling every single person that I've ever had the opportunity to work with, be like, from trade secrets to how am I going to do commo there? Like the con op plan, the concept of the operation, what is this going to look like? That starts kicking off. Yeah. And the very next day, we're wheels up. So, wow. We hang up phones, we book flights, and we leave the next day.
So Save Our Allies was a, how do I put it? Basically, Save Our Allies took the place of our government as far as extracting people from the country where, in other words, you had to step in to do some things that our government should have done.
Yeah, but ends of wars are never nice. And there's always...
war is never nice. So.
Yeah, war is never nice. And there's always this space. You have these big, huge organizations, the UN, Samaritan's Purse. Like these are huge, great Red Cross. They do so much good.
Yeah.
And then you have the governments that can come in and move mountains and big ships and big planes.
Yeah.
But there's always this little space, and this little space, we'll call it 10%. 10% is who can go forward.
Yeah.
Who can somebody from Samaritan's Purse go and fly into Kabul and then hop over a barbed wire, concertina wire fence and go out and find somebody in Kabul and bring them onto HKIA? No, they can't.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no possible way that could ever happen. The Red Cross can't do that. UN can't do that. The American government's not going to do that.
Yeah.
So there's a need, and we know and had identified this need. So in this like expeditionary heart of, okay, we can do a thing, the soft thing.
Yeah.
The heavy lifting is always done by conventional forces.
Yep.
One of the soft truths, special operations cannot exist or be successful without conventional support.
100%.
And it's the same for us. We knew that there was going to be a space where people are going to die, and we had to put in mechanisms, systems, processes to save the people in this space, to do the things that the rest of the country and the rest of these organizations couldn't do.
Yeah.
And that's what we did in Afghanistan. That's what we're doing in Ukraine. That's what we're going to have to do in Taiwan. That's what's going to happen in Venezuela. That is like, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's either somebody that's going to be able to do it, and after 20 years of war, there's people that know things and how to do these things that nobody else on the planet knows how to do and can't do.
Right.
So that's what we're going to do.
Well, I think, Save Our Allies was remarkably successful. The number of people that you guys brought out
almost
alone.
12% of everybody that left Afghanistan.
Yeah. That's a huge number for a small organization like you. 12, 13 people.
Yeah. There's 4 people on the ground, and there are 12 people forward deployed. 12 people total, to include the DC team, the lily pad team in the Middle East, and the 4 dudes on the ground. 12,000 people in 10 days.
I don't think people can really appreciate that. I think it's hard for people to wrap their head around. I understand that a lot of people don't understand how the government works, the shift between turning over the airport from DOD to DOS, understanding what mistake that was. Yeah. People don't really appreciate that, and then that leaves that, in a sense, that leaves these vulnerable. Basically, we created that mess in many ways. When you are on the ground there, yeah. I don't want to get too much into that. I think actually better yet, folks, if you really are interested in learning this, the documentary, send me.
If you want to watch me cry, I don't cry pretty. There's like pretty cries, like Brad Pitt cries, and he's like stoic, and a tear rolls down his cheek, and an angel
role.
Is born somewhere.
Yeah,
like when I cry, I'm like, I'm just like fat faced, stupid person.
Well, it's worth the watch if you have an interest in understanding, because that documentary really got into some of the weeds about what happened, what went wrong, but more importantly, what you guys did.
It's an AAR.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an hour-long AAR.
Exactly.
Chronologically, we go from like the initial pre-plan, concept of the operation, actions on, post, like that is like if you take a step back and rewatch that movie, you're like, oh,
actually,
I know this format.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense now. I got wrapped up in the story and what you guys did, and so I can't recommend it enough for people just to see not necessarily the bad within our government, but the good within the American people. Yeah. Like what you, Nick, Sarah, Chad, and everybody else that was involved in that.
It's a totally apolitical.
Yeah, it was.
We just try to be as truthful and accurate and transparent in chronological order of what happened. Yeah. And like there's a lot
some
of
people aren't going to like it because
a lot
there's
of people
some
don't
truth.
like it. It's kind of being censored already, but it's truth.
Yeah, and see, that's what we need. We need that truth. And yes, you will get a chance to watch Tim cry if you watch that movie. So a little spoiler alert there. I wasn't going to say that, but since you did, okay, fine.
Lame.
Yeah. Lame. But you can't argue with the success. You can't argue with the value of what you guys did. Even though you guys were, it was up against there was a lot of obstacles in your way, literally obstacles in your way, trying to be successful. And I guess my question to you was, like, I know I don't have to ask this question. If you had to do it again, would you do it again? Of course you would do it again. But what would you do differently?
our success had nothing to do with me, first of all. It only had to do with the men and women, mostly in uniform, that were on the ground already.
Yeah.
And that was a really, it was a fine line to walk where, we're navigating DOD rules like the 82nd and the Marines there. They had really clear guidance that was almost in conflict operationally. So, mission.
Yeah.
Find Americans and allies that can be legally brought back and evacuated out of Afghanistan. That is Save Our Allies mission. Marine 82nd mission, secure and stabilize the airport. Those things people think, well, why? And you just can't understand that. Again, it really is valuable to watch the documentary. Yeah. So what they had, this was not a NEO operation. A NEO, a non-combatant evacuation operation, which is conducted by the military, and it's done in a very, I have the playbook. We can go to my office.
It's been done countless times.
And here's what it looks like to do it.
Very successful,
That is not how it happened.
Not at all.
And nor was it a NEO. It was run by Department of State as if the airport was an embassy, which creates a choke point to be specific gates where Department of State people are allowing specific people to be brought onto the base.
Yeah.
Well, those choke points, like Abbey Gate, had lines of hundreds of thousands of people, and somewhere in all of those hundreds of thousands of people are the Taliban occasionally just murdering people, just dumping a magazine into the crowd. And so our success being dictated and determined by the men and women in uniform and other organizations that were there, I wish I had spent more time even in some of the pre-sergeant major classes and paying attention to how do I work with NGOs? How do I, as a volunteer, what are the mechanisms and systems? And there are mechanisms and systems within the military and within the government for these NGOs to collaborate and work successfully. I didn't pay attention to any of those things.
Oh, man, dude. I can remember one of my chiefs, platoon chiefs, pulled me aside and was like, dude, you need to recognize that we rely on these people. Yeah. These people are an integral part of our success.
If I saw a slideshow with Doctors Without Borders, I was like, next slide, waste of my time. Oh, Red Cross, next slide, UN, next slide. I don't know what they did. As fast as I could hit next slide. Yeah. And how arrogant of me, how stupid of me to not realize how important this could have been. And then here we are, and I'm ignorant. I'm dumb. I'm not educated, and I don't know how to do it. Yeah. So, if I could go back in time, it would to grab that stupid, arrogant piece of shit by the ear and turn him back and, pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, so, the takeaway that I had in watching the documentary was we can't always expect things to go the way that they should go. And if they don't go that way, there is still people that are willing to step into that void, that little chasm that you talked about, and still get it done. Yeah. And that's the takeaway for me. We can't expect the government to do everything right. I mean, they're human just like us. But what we can expect is we can't expect the human spirit to step into that void and then be the space between that void and try to help them make better choices down the road. Because I have to think that with this just utter complete failure of an evacuation will hopefully be studied, will hopefully become a major review for future generations of State Department personnel, military personnel, DOD personnel, future politicians, all these people.
What I don't want it to be is politicians taking it and being like, see, this administration screwed up.
Exactly.
Right? So then it becomes partisan, and it still has to, just like you said, it has to be objective.
Yes.
And people have to use this as an opportunity to learn.
What can I learn?
So we don't do it. We've done it in my lifetime.
Twice.
3 times.
Oh, 3. Which was the third?
Well, it happened yesterday.
Oh, okay. That's right. Okay. I forgot it. So fresh. That's so fresh.
It's such a fresh wound.
Yeah, it is a fresh
wound.
It took me a while. Yeah. But I mean, geez, when I spent.
I mean, we also could throw Grenada and Panama in there.
Yeah. Those had better outcomes. I mean, the thing that I feel the best thing that we can take away from this is, again, the government's going to make mistakes. That's cool. Can't expect them to be perfect. but that there's going to be folks that will fill that space no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's reassuring. That means that, okay, we can make mistakes, but know that there's a mechanism in place, the human spirit, the American spirit, that's going to step in there and take care of that.
Nick said it, and I think it's so succinct. He's never been more ashamed of his government and more proud of Americans.
Yes.
The veteran community that stepped up, like I didn't step up any more than the thousands of other people that were sitting there on signal threads that were finding and identifying people that needed to be evacuated, like to a degree validating them and then forwarding those lists to a consolidated location where then we could proof and vet them via Department of State and DOD. Like we could not have been successful without the thousands of people playing on their phones.
Yeah.
I say playing, but like we're doing legitimate work. Yeah. We set up like little, like just here in San Antonio, I'm not going to say who they were, but there were 3 organizations, and the people that were working there were like, I can't not do something.
Yeah.
And the bosses are like, okay, we'll go do something.
Yeah.
So they went and they set up in their conference room like a 24-hour like tactical operations command center where they were vetting names and then forwarding those names to DC. Unbeknownst to them, those names were then coming to save our allies for us to evacuate.
Oh my God.
Like it's wild.
That is awesome. But that's what I'm saying. There's going to be people that fill that space. Yeah. And we just have to put faith in them filling that space where the government can't.
Yeah. Man, people stepped up.
I'd love hearing that.
It was so humbling to see how many people stepped up.
Humbling and also reassuring.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Donated time, donated money, donated resources, donated planes, bought buses, hopped on planes, flew to the Middle East,
crazy.
Lost weeks of their lives. I remember like being like, man, on my 9th battery for the day. Like they would just burn through their phone in 3 hours. They'd charge it. It's just crazy.
Well, let's start wrapping it up. I got one more question for you. What's the biggest takeaway that you want the listeners to gain?
Yeah, failure isn't final.
Fine. Yeah. Such a cute little moniker there.
Fucking work. Work.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to work. There are few people on the planet I can take a step back and look at you and be like, nobody works harder than Jeff Gonzalez, right? You're putting in the hours in the gym. You're putting the hours with your dog. You're putting the hours in on the range.
Yeah.
You're going and running classes all over the country. And there's a reason that you're successful. It's because you work so freaking hard.
Yeah.
Like you come in, you know what my life is like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody comes in and looks at, if they pulled up my phone and looked at my calendar for today alone, you'd be like, this is impossible. This is impossible.
2 places at one time. Yeah.
My morning started long before the same sun came up, and it's going to end long after the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And, from going to my church and talking about Veterans Day coming up, to going on how many different talk shows today to talk about the 1 year removed from Afghanistan, to do this podcast with you, to make sure I get a training session with Shanji. I got to go make sure I'm prepped for Thursday's range day that you were making fun of me. That it's gonna be like, are you really whining about the range?
You were
6 hours of not fun range time of doing work on the range.
Whatever.
Like I want to go do fun range time, but like this are the bubbles aligned? Is the eye relief proper for this optic? Is the muzzle velocity appropriate? Boring.
Work. That's what it is. It's work.
It's work.
It's work.
Go and do work.
Go and do the work. Man, I tell you, I love that because I really, that's the thing, man. If people just put in the time, and recognize
consistently putting in time over time.
Yeah. That's like when people ask me, I'm like, success equals consistency over time. Yeah. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful, whatever it is you're going to do.
You can hate me, you can do whatever you want, but come in here, walk in my shoes, put on my boots for a day.
Dude, no way. No way. That's tough. I see you almost every day, and I'm like, yeah, he's there. Okay, just like a ping pong.
But it's you. I love the jet fuel. I have jet fuel to my purpose because I'm not gonna be finally put in this dirt without knowing that I put every bit of my life and effort into preserving and protecting human life. We've lost too many friends.
Yeah.
We've lost too many brothers.
Yeah.
I take too many amputees out on hunts for me to sit there and be comfortable in my life, with a fat freaking belly and have my fat freaking kids run around with no purpose, with no direction, with no motivation. So I'm going to do this until I die.
I love it. And I'm better for it. I know that for sure. I mean, yes, getting a text message, oh, nice workout, 18 minutes. Yeah. I'm like, motherfucker, yeah.
Always watching.
Always watching. But it does. And I think that's what helps me is like there's that the constant push. Seeing other people in my circle push. So that's a great one. I love that one. I'm pretty sure people know where to find you on social media and in the interwebs, but do you want to share anything in particular on that?
Save Our Allies.
Yes.
Follow them. You can go to saveourallies.org, Save Our Allies on any of the social medias.
Please go with that one.
And then I'm just Tim Kennedy.
Yeah. Whatever. Million plus. All right, folks. Well, that's a wrap. I want to thank Tim for coming on this show and being everything I expected. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all of our sponsors. Thanks for everybody, especially the men and women that are holding the line. Check out previous podcasts by visiting bulletproofworkshop.com. Learn more about me and training opportunities by visiting tridentconcept.com. Until then, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, and you're listening to the Bulletproof Workshop podcast. Take care and stay safe.